And now, Turnbuckles, Trunks, and Titles presents to you Nicholas London and Cueball Carmichael.
They said it couldn't be done, but somehow, like always, Q and I, we put everything together, we wrapped it in a neat little ball like so, and we got Triple T Radio. And of course, you can only have it with the host of the show, the man who holds all the power in one hand. Or as one guy once said, he holds it all in the palm of his hand. He's Q Ball Carmichael. He's the host of the show. I'm Nick London. Q, what is going on, brother?
Well, another Tuesday has snuck up and attacked us from behind, not unlike the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
That's right. That was well known. Right.
Ambush.
Right.
Suddenly it's Tuesday. And we're, thankful that we have the eCam network and makes our show first class. And we love it. And if you're watching the show, do us a favor. Please hit like and subscribe. It really helps us move forward when we have a lot more subscribers. So if you do that for us, please, we'd appreciate it. And of course, now we're going into part 4, I believe, of the National Wrestling Alliance. And last week we dedicated an entire hour to the one and only Nature Boy Ric Flair, which he well deserved.
Yes.
And so we're in the 80s now, and I really wanted to open up with, in 1983, Jim Crockett had the big first Starrcade, which was on Thanksgiving Day, huge event. Really put them on the map. Closed circuit television. There wasn't pay-per-view back then, so it was really a big deal, and it rolled on pretty good. And Georgia Championship Wrestling was still broadcasting on Saturday nights on WTBS. It would start at 6:05, the Power Hour, and it would boot it at 8:05 hour of it, and it was great. And I was tuning on Saturday, July 14th, 1984. I'll never forget it. And who comes on? Nobody but Vince McMahon is now on Georgia Championship Wrestling. And I, for a minute, had thought I'd lost my mind and somehow tuned into the WWF on Saturday night or something. I didn't know what was going on at that point. And I was like, what is McMahon doing down there? Turns out he bought Georgia Championship Wrestling sort of really quick and threw himself down there, and that became to be known as Black Saturday. Black Monday or Black Friday. It has a bad incantation to it, and well, it should, because it merged into the WWF, taking over Georgia Championship. Longtime TV spot on CBS, which has been home for them, the program for 12 years. And I remember watching that, and it took me about 5 or 10 minutes to figure out what was going on. I just couldn't believe it. I was in the wrestling business at that time. And, back then you could watch wrestling shows and actually learn something. And, of course, that caused viewership to plummet because everybody was looking for Gordon Soley, and they were looking for Georgia Championship Wrestling and the National Wrestling Alliance, and boom, bada bing, it's Vince McMahon and it's the WWF. And at that point, the year before, in '83, finally, after a longtime member of the NWA, his dad, even though they were running their own deal with WWF and WWF, he was still a member of the NWA until 1983. When he walked away, even though he was doing his own deal, he was still a member. So he had sort of a rivalry, as you know, there'd been a long-standing rivalry between him and Ted Turner. And, by the end of the decade, it proved disastrous for the established Georgia Championship Wrestling. It just failed miserably, being a WWE, WWF promotion. Lost a ton of money, and finally they just closed it down, which was really bad because it had been a mainstay on television for a long time, and It just was terrible. And so Crockett's promotion continued, up until the point where he decided to sell it. And that's sort of where he ended up selling it to Vince McMahon for $1 million. Rumor has it he never got paid. The rumor mill is Vince got it for $1 million but never paid, which I don't know. But really, what happened? That was kind of the takeover. If you notice at that point, Vince started rating not just Georgia Championship Wrestling, but he started rating AWA, and he would come to get guys like Hogan, and he got Tully Blanchard, and he got Art Anderson as the Brainbusters, and he was just really throwing money around like it was completely insane. And so, basically by 85, Crockett was becoming the center of the entire NWA. But the WWF was gaining ground. I mean, they had WrestleMania. Crockett responded with his pay-per-views. But really, it was starting to head towards a sort of a head, and Ted Turner was behind it, and other guys were behind it, and the big gold belt was there. And all of a sudden, it was WCW, and it wasn't the NWA anymore. And the territorial division of the NWA just started losing steam, and the territory system was dead. I know Vinnie Mac thought that he could create a dominant national product. He went to the networks and convinced them to put WWF on, and really, it wasn't that much longer before he was pretty dominant. But there was a resurgence of WCW in the late 90s. And that's when we had, WCW was going against WWF, and it was a big clash. But trying to stay on topic of the NWA, is the NWA really started to become nothing more than a bunch of independent promoters paying their $350 a year to become an NWA member. That's really what it was, and it started to get extremely diluted, my opinion. What you have to say, Nick?
Well, what I was going to say was, first and foremost, you bringing up about the independents and paying your $350 to be a member. The fans probably don't realize the impact of, back in the day, paying your fee was actually a huge deal. Like, yeah, we're looking at it now. We're saying about all these little companies that want to be a part of the NWA, but the NWA as a whole is no longer there. So you pay your $350, yeah, and you're gonna be remembered. I mean, depending on who you are and the impact you've made, we're not going to forget you. I mean, history has shown us that we don't forget those that have come before us if you truly love this business. But with that said, the way the business was then versus 84, 85, 86, 87, as we know, things would begin to die down. The NWA is, somewhat still around, as people like to think it is, but it'll never be what it once was. And as much as we all would love it to be, the names today just aren't what they used to be. But when you talk about Georgia Championship Wrestling being the Black Saturday that Vince McMahon showed up there, explain to the people though, Q, that number one, cable's not thriving. Cable is not in every household in
Right.
the country. We know that. But explain to the fans what it would mean to the fans sitting in that building that night. And out comes Vince, because 9 times out of 10, they do know who he is, per se. But they may not be able to put it all together. But a guy like you and me, if we were sitting there and we knew the business, how big of an impact does that have on Georgia Championship Wrestling?
Well, I know, I can say for me watching it and watching it that night when Vince came out and just being totally flabbergasted. Wow, I can't, I really time he never really taken credit for owning the WWE, but that was the point where he started to do it. And immediately I had a bad taste in my mouth, and I didn't like Vince. I think it was a very class position. It made it a WWF promotion. Really, it was awkward. And I know that back then, fans were loyal to WWF, and there were fans that were loyal to the NWA. Georgia Championship Wrestling had hosted the NWA for 12 years. It was at the top of its game from 81 to 83 on TBS, WTBS, Ted Turner's broadcasting station. I think was probably the first cable channel that really started getting around the country, and people would watch it. A lot of people in the North would watch it just for Georgia Championship Wrestling, and people in the South have been loyal to it because when you're going to the arena in Charlotte, North Carolina, you're seeing Nature Boy Ric Flair against Wahoo McDaniel. When you're going to the arena in Madison Square Garden at that time, you're seeing Bruno San Martino or Larry Zbyszko when he was there, or you're seeing Tony Gurria, or you're seeing the guys that were WWF guys, and there was a separation. The fans, for me as a fan, I accepted the difference and embraced it. But when I saw the merge, it really bothered me. And I saw a guy who was gaining steam and gaining territories. And I knew at that point the NWA was not going to be what we were watching on WTBS on a Saturday night. There was not going to be another television defense of the NWA TV title, which was great because you got a championship match on TV every week. There was going to be no more build big shows at the end where Ric Flair was the so for me, wanted to watch the WWE, but at that point I've been watching Georgia Championship Wrestling for 3 years. But I'd also been watching, being raised in upstate New York, the WWF from Madison Square Garden. And it's funny. I had two goals in wrestling. I sort of had the guys on the eastern shore of Virginia, in that area. I was pretty entrenched in that area, and they used to call me the Rocky Balboa wrestling. And the reason they did is because my only goal as a child was to do two things. Number one, until I saw Georgia Championship Wrestling, my only goal was to wrestle one time in Madison Square Garden, which I got to, and it was actually a title defense against Gilbert. His light heavyweight title. So I got to wrestle there. But what was kind of cool is in 2002, I got a phone call from Chris Stevenson, who ran 4 Ric Flair's gyms back in the day here in the Charlotte area and the Raleigh-Durham area. He had a call from him, and he says, "Hey, how would your sister like to come down and wrestle for Georgia Championship Wrestling? Jerry Oates is running it, and he's got a small local TV program." And I was like, yes. I didn't even consider the fact that it was going to be an 18-hour drive. It was just yes, no problem. So I got to wrestle at Georgia Championship Wrestling too. So two sort of career goals, one from the time I was 9 and one from the time I was about 19 when I saw Georgia Championship Wrestling for the first time. But, we're trying to stick with the NWA. The NWA kind of went back to Japan. WCW was Turner's baby. It was on TV, and it was a major competitor. And everybody knows that when the Attitude Era started, WCW, right at the beginning of that, was kicking the WWF ass in ratings. I mean, it was just smoking them.
No joke.
And Vince, there's nothing worse than a mad Vince McMahon. I've seen him mad one time. Let me tell you something. When he goes off, it'll make your butt pucker. I mean, it's scary when he goes off. And I saw him go off on a guy that I was talking to, and I just sort of shuffled 3 feet to the left to get out of the picture.
No doubt.
Yeah, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I'm done here.
The NWA, Flair just in the 90s, 91, it was WCW, and Flair to World Heavyweight Championship in Japan because Japan was still recognizing the NWA more than the people were in the States. Interesting. I think it tried to remain dominant force, but it was mostly in Japan. They had a lot of tournaments and things in Japan. A couple times the WCW was going to be involved, but they withdrew at the last minute and left the NWA over there. But, something else happened that we had touched on is both the precursor to the WWE was the WWF, the precursor the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. But they were part of the NWA until they decided to split off. Vince's dad started his own regional promotion in the Northeast where he was from. And at that point, they split off. But also, as we talked about before, AWA, the American Wrestling Association, split off, and that was Vern Gagne's group. So, people look back on the NWA. If it wasn't for the NWA, there'd be no WWE right now, and there would have never been an AWA. And one of the important things, too, is, a guy who had worked with WCW, and I believe the NWA, decided he was going to be in the early 90s called ECW. And I don't know if you remember the box, but a person, Dennis Corluzzo, was the NWA president at that time. And Dennis was working with Pretty Boy Larry Sharp. He was working with Joel Goodhart, who was a radio host for wrestling. And he was working with Todd Gordon, who owned a big jewelry street that's really just got a lot of, off of Market Street, a lot of jewelry stores, high-end ones. And Todd Gordon was kind of the money behind it. And I think that they really were pushing the NWA, and I think it was about to make a resurgence. But a weird thing happened. As the NWA grew in ECW was really called, it was Eastern Championship Wrestling. It wasn't drew their membership of the NWA in sort of a FU way. I don't know if you remember it, but what happened, they had a tournament for the NWA heavyweight title after WCW had withdrawn from the NWA. And the finals of the tournament was Shane Douglas against Too Cold Scorpio for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
I've seen this.
And Douglas wins the match. Turner is there with his partner, Dennis Corluzzo. And Dennis, like I said, a personal friend of mine, a personal friend of my wife's. My mother-in-law worked for him for many years at his French company. Dennis was completely blindsided because once Shane won the title, he threw the NWA belt in a trash can and strapped on the first ever ECW heavyweight title and said that was the only world title that mattered. And Todd Gordon at that point split with Dennis Corluzzo. Basically, both of them were at the show. Dennis didn't know it was coming. It happened. Dennis didn't know what the hell to do. He's surrounded by all these guys. Todd Gordon sides with ECW, and that's the night they changed the name to Extreme Championship Wrestling. So that was a pretty big deal right there. And at that point, the NWA actually in a place that they never see it. NWA World Heavyweight Championship was in a trash can in a bad area of Philadelphia.
Right. But now let's armchair quarterback that for a second. Okay. You're old school, and I think that is a compliment at the highest level in the world of professional wrestling. You're old school. A lot of old school dudes we're talking about held that belt. A lot of great world champions. We're not talking just United States. We're talking Canadians, talking Americans. We're talking Japanese. We're talking all over the world. Have that belt meant more to? I know people personally that have worked in the WWE that have said that belt meant more to the world of pro wrestling than any other title meant to any other organization. Now, what would you do? What did you think when you seen that? Because I know you saw it. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw it live, whether in person or whether on a television. But I just want to know what was going through your head when you see that. Because I remember it, the NWA belt, man. That thing, that's still a gem to this day. What's going through your head? Like, are you thinking I'm going to kill this son of a bitch? Like, what's going through Cueball Carmichael's head, Chris Jackson, when you see this?
Well, he was and still has been a friend of mine for many years. So when I first saw it, I knew it wasn't Shane's decision to do that. I knew that decision came from Paul and Paul Heyman, and it came from Todd Gordon conspiring against Dennis Coralluzzo in the NWA with a chance to catapult Extreme Championship Wrestling to the next level. But so I wasn't mad at Shane particularly. I he did what he had to do, but I was extremely disappointed in Todd Gordon and Paul Heyman that they would take a title that had such a storied history, including my trainer Lou Thez holding it 6 different times. I think it was a complete act of disrespect to every man that had held the NWA title.
Absolutely.
I really do.
And no disrespect to Shane. No disrespect to Shane, because not only have I've interviewed Shane on a few occasions on the past show, Rope to Rope. Okay, I don't want this to look like a bitch fest. I like Shane, and I hold no disrespect toward him. So I know you're talking. I didn't mean to cut you off like that, but I just want to tell the people who might be saying, "Whoa." There's no disrespect to Shane or myself. I like Shane, and I've talked to him on Facebook numerous times. So anyway, please.
And I have both the phone that I'm talking on right now too. And I booked him when I was booking for RWA, which was Renegade Wrestling Association out of Pittsburgh area, Pennsylvania. I booked Shane. First opportunity I had to book a show on it. Because he's a friend of mine. He needed the work, and I wanted to give it to him. And I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and it gave me a chance to catch up with him.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I know where that came from. It came from Paul, and Todd went along with it because he saw, I was fortunate enough to be in the back on many occasions, and I spent 6 months with ECW traveling. But I can tell you this, that those fans that fit in the ECW arena were rabid fans of violence.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
All the guys that went into that promotion were fantastic wrestlers.
Sure they were.
Fantastic wrestlers. Shane, Axel, all the originals, guys.
Most certainly.
All guys that could wrestle. They could put on a pair of black trunks, black boots, go in a ring, and have a match, and nobody knew who they were, and when they left, they'd get applause. They're that good. But it just so happened that violence is what paid the bill.
Yes. Yeah.
So Extreme Championship Wrestling was necessary, but they were also, I had season tickets for the Philadelphia Eagles from 1988 to 1993, never missed a game, big fan of the Philadelphia Flyers. I know it's not going to set well with the Canadian, but fans of the Flyers back when they were the Broad Street Bullies, because I modeled my character in wrestling as a barroom bully, and part of it was from the Broad Street Bullies. And I was originally going to be from Broad Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, instead of Canada, but I decided to go with the roots. But, those people in that arena, they loved what happened. I mean, they exploded. They became incredible loyalists. It was almost like, I don't like to use the word revolution, but it was a revolution in wrestling.
There's a revolution.
And the problem is,
yes.
Yeah, the problem is when you beat a guy over the head with a trash can, he gets 6 stitches. Next week, you got to hit him with a bigger trash can. He's got to get 10 stitches. It escalated so bad to the point where New Jack, who's a friend of mine, and Vic Grimes is a friend of mine, that New Jack actually was trying to kill Vic. I mean, there was that much animosity, and the promotion had pushed it, and that's another story for another day. But I understand. I always look at things from the wrestling business standpoint. I do that for a reason, because it keeps me from getting pissed off at people if I look at it from a business standpoint. From a business standpoint, I understand why they did it, but there was a better way to do it than throw it in the trash can, because when you did that, you threw every person that ever fought for that belt, had that belt, was a contender for that belt, and I'm one of them that was in the top 10 in 2013 National Wrestling Alliance Heavyweight Championship. Wrestled Rob Conway 2 or 3, but never went through. And I would have stretched him like a rubber band and made him tap and been champion, and he knew it, and that's why the match didn't happen. But, I would have fought for that belt like Luthez taught me to fight for that belt. So I just thought that it put a black mark on the NWA's champions, not just the champions, anybody that got in a ring that ever dreamed of becoming NWA heavyweight champion, anybody that started wrestling, went fully through training, went out on the road, that was in that area at the time, their ultimate goal was to be the NWA heavyweight champion. So not only did you trash previous champions, previous contenders, but you also trashed thousands of wrestlers that had dedicated their life to the sport to one day have a chance at that title. So for me, it did two things. Number one, it showed an incredible amount of disrespect for the wrestling business, and that's probably why Paul has worked for Vince for so long, because neither one of them gave a damn about something like that. They're two peas in a pod, in my opinion. But I think that it really hurt my feelings as a wrestler, and I know it did a lot of people, and it just didn't set well. And I took Shane out of the equation, and I Two Gold Scorpio's a friend of mine. I managed C.W. Anderson against him a couple times. But the point being is, the people that made that decision, I don't have a lot of respect for those people. I just don't. When you take a storied history of something, there's a better way to do it. Look, lay it down in the middle of the ring and say, somebody come and get it. Have a Mark jump out of the crowd and go get it and act like he's taking it home or something. But you don't put it in a trash can. I mean, that just...
I never agreed with then, and I didn't agree with it when Medusa did it. It's just something I've never been a fan of, ever. And it's almost to me burning their flag. It's the same to me. Like, there's certain things you don't want to do, they call it suicide in pro wrestling. That's one of them. Don't put something in a trash can. You just don't. That's like telling a bad guy you don't call a good guy fat. Or you don't. Right. Yeah, it's same thing to me. Like same with you'll never beat me and you lose.
Yeah.
Now you're always gonna lose because you just told the crowd things like that. You know what I mean? Like the little nuances that we know is secret things to say and don't say.
Sure.
It's one of the things you just don't.
Sure. Like you never call an older wrestler old. You call him seasoned, a veteran.
Yeah.
You don't call a fat guy. You call him a big guy.
Yeah. He's got him fat.
That kind of stuff. Those lines were never crossed until that point, and that crossed like every line that there was. And, it just for me, it was just.
It was dirty. I think dirty. It was dirty. There were so many ways they could have went about it, but, because Paul's Paul, and if Paul smells money and sees green, he's going to do it because at that point, Paul's just getting ready to fire off with this extreme, so he's got to make a mark. I mean, would I have done it? No. Would Paul take it back if he could? Probably not, because it was money.
No.
It is what it is.
Right. And then the NWA just kind of like, if you notice, it kind of disappeared.
Yeah, it did. It fell off the face of the earth.
Dennis was still the president. But when something like that happens, I mean, you're not going to go have a show next week in South Jersey, 20 miles away from where that happened, to get anybody in the crowd with the NWA title. So it just kind of sat kind of dormant. And then early in 2002, Jeff Jarrett's TNA comes out, and Jeff and Jerry's dad, the NWA Total Nonstop Action, NWA TNA. We know how that went too. It lasted for a little while, but
did you like it? Did you like it? Like, I mean, again, I'm not trying to beat this, but like a dead horse or anything. Old school. They're trying to revamp something that worked before, but it's a new gen. I mean, a new generation is probably an understatement. I mean, this is an entirely different group of guys. I mean, my generation, we're all grown up. So imagine your generation, you're right behind me. You know what I mean? Like, you're not thinking,
yeah.
where's your head at when you see Jeff Jarrett's going to start a new promotion with the NWA logo in it?
I thought to myself, why do you Total Nonstop Action? I mean, what you national championship wrestling, you call the program Total Nonstop. You don't the name. You know what I mean? WWE used to have the name said death on it from the beginning. I didn't buy into the name. If you had the NWA wrestling, it was your Total Nonstop Action show, it would have been great. Right?
Yeah.
WWE and so I didn't like the beginning. The octagon ring or the I know back to the
Sorry, guys.
The relationship 5 years 2000.
Sorry, guys. We're working here.
It was sort of dead for a while.
Yeah, and the thing is, Q is the guys that they put the belt on, it worked for some of them. Some of them it was great. But then there were some that you kind of, like Jeff Jarrett. I always say that when the promoter is the champion, like that just doesn't sit always great with me. If he's deserving of it and he's a good worker and that crowd is there for him, then it works for me. Especially if he's the only guy in the locker room that can work that style and nobody else, they're getting on the job training. And a lot of them were then. But what are your thoughts on making sure that the NWA belt was represented properly and was on the proper waist of those deserving of it?
Another show for another day. I think some guys had it that should have had it. I think some guys had it that shouldn't have had it. I thought Rob Conway was a good champion. When Bruce Tharpe took over in 2012 through 16 before he sold it to Billy Corgan, I think Bruce really put his best foot. He ended up being partners with a couple guys. One of them was a friend of mine. He sued him. When that happened, the guy called me. We had a 3-hour conversation.
Wow.
I hadn't seen the guy in 10 years. Yeah, I hadn't seen the guy in 10 years, and he picks up the phone and calls me and says, hey, let me tell you what's happening with Bruce in the NWA. He's suing us, saying that we didn't maintain proper liability insurance, and he's suing us. And do you think I should put up the money to fight a court? I said, no. He's a lawyer. He's got unlimited funds. Let it go.
Yeah.
And that was a 3-hour conversation, though. But I think Bruce did his best. I mean, I know that I worked with a promoter here in North Carolina who ran NWA Worldwide Wrestling. It was a good promotion in the beginning. I took over the booking for a while, and then he decided he wanted to take it back. But Bruce Tharpe came in a couple times. And I met Bruce personally. I talked to him on the phone many times, but I met him personally. And he wanted to do something with me to take me to the next level. And I appreciated that, but it wasn't in my game plan. I wasn't interested in going on the road and going to Japan. And at that time, Bruce was going to Japan a lot. I mean, they were going because the NWA was still revered in Japan. So when Bruce had it, I mean, they were really doing a lot of wrestling in Japan. Once a month, they were going over there. Adam Pearce, I think, was a great NWA heavyweight champion. I love Adam Pearce. I remember the day that he left and went down to WWE, and I said, it's a sad day. He goes, why is that? I go, because you were on my bucket list. I never got to wrestle him, but, Adam's a great guy. He knows the business, professional. Country and in Japan, he was a true world heavyweight champion. Rob Conway was the true world's heavyweight champion.
Yeah, he was.
And I think enough time had sat where it was time to bring the NWA title back. And what better place to take it besides America than Japan, where it still carried a high volume of respect among the people, partly because the Lou Thesz wrestled there a lot, and a lot of the older guys did too. So what was it? Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. David Marquez's program runs with the NWA banner now, and one champ, double champ. Talk back. That's in front of me. So that's the time to talk about it. But I think Adam Pearce. I think that Jack Stain, when he had it for a short time, he was a great champion too. I think that Rob Conway was a great champion. But then I think I'm not sure if Billy Corgan buying the end of the great move. I just not for Billy. I don't know if it was a great move. I understand I got sold, and he's a great singer with Smashing Pumpkins, but what do you think of that?
What do I think of? Say it again because you were flashing in and out.
Billy Corgan buying.
Man, what I had heard was it was a checkbook. He was going to be able to do things different because of money. I don't know, because he was so involved with Impact, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's over here. He's going to be taking it over. Rob Conway at this time is hotter than a hornet. He's over, and I just, you know what, man? I just no. I don't feel it. I don't, honestly. He's a singer. Stick with what you know. Leave the wrestling up to the guys that know the business inside and out.
Yeah, I will tell you that I do know Nick Aldis.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I helped Joey Mercury and Christian York train his wife. Stay in touch with her. We chat occasionally, back and forth. I met Nick at a Omega show down here. Matt and Jeff were on, and Shane Helms and Mike Maverick ran, and really super nice guy, jacked, 6'3", 6'4". I mean, just a monster of a guy. Fantastic wrestler. I mean, just here's the thing that I've always looked at. Nick, nobody currently, because I think he's that good. So, but now I don't know. Is NWA with Ring of Honor? I'm not sure.
I don't know
where the NWA is now. Once again, it's kind of lost in the mix, if you ask me.
Well, and that's it.
It's there, but not there.
No, you're right though. It's like, because see, they're doing the YouTube thing. I don't know about down there. Maybe they're on your cable, but they ain't on my cable. And it's hard for me to keep up and know the storylines unless I'm able to watch it once or twice a week on television. I mean, yes, it's great. YouTube is great. And yes, it's, you know how great YouTube is. Obviously, look at this wonderful show. But it's not something that I really sit and watch. But it's the same as I always say with Impact, with ROH, with any company. Sell me. Sell me on the product. If I'm clicking channels and I notice it, sell me. Why is it so good? Why? I know Trevor Murdoch is there. I seen some stuff. I'm not dumb.
Big fan of
No.
him.
Yeah, me
Big
too.
fan of him.
Huge fan. I talk to him all the time on Facebook. Don't mind the guy at all. Get along great with him. But sell me on your product. Why am I tuning in? Tell me a story. Take me on a roller coaster. Make me have no choice but to tune back in to see what's going to happen next. Just right now, at this moment, I've yet to really go, whoa, what was that? Holy. The Jim Cornette thing almost got me.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem with it. Is it was commingled with Ring of Honor, then it wasn't. Then they do an invasion angle. That's been done before. It's everybody knows it's not real. So I mean, it's now are they Ring of Honor talents appearing on NWA, Ring of Honor, or something like that, invasion. I'm so confused and so lost. Yeah, then the National Wrestling Alliance right now, I don't even think it exists. That's bad. I hate to say that, but
horrible, but it's true.
Thank you. It's horrible. It just
great.
No direction, no leadership.
Not trying to throw a cheap plug out there, but a great band once wrote a song called "Sad But True," and it is sad but true because you're right. It is a legacy that could have still been carried to this very day. Vince McMahon does not own the NWA name. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason for the NWA name to still not be just like the WWE flag. It should still be up there because it's still a brand. The brand itself, okay, guys, and this is where it gets interesting. The name, the WWE, is a brand. Then you have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have NXT, you have 205 Live, you have the WWE Network, you have WWE Music, you have WWE Studios. That's a brand with all those things in it. The NWA is still a brand. The problem is a guy like Billy Corgan, who is running the show. He is the Omega over there, whether anyone likes it or not. Here's the brand. Do something with it. Stop leaving it sitting there. You're not.
Here's the problem. It is a brand between the WWE and the NWA. WWE is an identity. NWA is a brand with no identity. It's a brand, but it's not organized. It doesn't have specific programming or merchandise or marketing. It's just kind of like they throw it on the wall and hope some of it sticks. So brands have to have I'm not talking about being identifiable. It's an identifiable brand.
Sure.
But the people behind the brand have
no idea.
They don't know what they're doing.
No.
It's simple. It's like, look, if you had a decent booker, I don't know if you're running just YouTube shows. If you had a good booker and you gave him a list of talent, a talented roster, and the guy knew the wrestling business, he could put it together, start a year out, work his way backwards, and then go in that direction and give an identity. Look, I know where I want to be in a year. I know how to do the JR moment in wrestling. That, the old show Dallas, who shot JR, signed a confidentiality agreement that they wouldn't tell people, and nobody knew, and they waited for 3 months, and they had the largest television audience in the history of it, watching it the first week of the season when they said who you have to do every week in wrestling. Every week you have to leave people with a what's going to happen next week now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Them with something that the book came together. Wrestling's can't see it coming, anticipate it. If you build up anticipation amongst fans, they can't wait to watch the next episode. Happens, but these guys have anticipation to make people even think about watching it the following week. So there's no brand identity. There's no cliffhangers and JR moments. There's no suspense. There's no drama. There's no cliffhangers. There's no anticipation of, oh my God, I can't miss the next show. I walked down the street. This is a true story. I haven't run a show in 3 years. I was out the other day with the chief of police who's retired, ran into a guy. First thing he says is, hey, Chris, when are you running your next show? That last one was awesome. And it's been 3 years. And every time I go out into town, people are like, when are you going to run your next show? And the last thing that they saw was I wasn't booked on the event. But Damian Wayne was booked against Tracy Smothers. In Mall, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling League, the pile driver is an illegal move. The ref was knocked down. Damian, the pile driver to Tracy, laid over top of him. The ref was out. I came in, pulled Damian off, gave him a pile driver, put Tracy on top of him, slid out just as the ref came up again. 3, and people were like, oh my God. And they were like, and I didn't wrestle on the show, but everybody in town knows who I am. So that cliffhanger has hung for 3 years, and people still that went to that show still ask me today, when are you running your next show?
But Q,
it's been 3 years.
The thing is, Q,
and I'm not that smart, Nick. It's just good wrestling business.
Right. That's right. But the thing is, and this is where guys need a pen and paper, and then you listen to shows like this because of you. But what people don't realize is we're going here. This is where we're going. This is what we're gonna work. This is the payoff. The thing is, the boys are so concerned about being here and not at the payoff. Boys, work backwards. Work backwards. Q already knows he's coming in that ring. Work backwards. We got to make sure we're here when Q's coming. No. Work backwards. Q's coming in. You already know that. That's the problem is everyone is flipping out because they're not getting every spot in. And, you get a guy like you who comes in and you look at everyone and you say, boys, what the hell are you doing? What are you worried about that for? No, you come back here next week. You don't need to get all your shit in tonight. You know what I mean? Like they don't get that. And I think that's what the NWA lacks is that they're rushing everything to give you everything in one night. I don't need to tune in next week because I just saw Nick Aldis do a shooting star press and a 450 splash. It don't get no better than that. I don't need to go back now. That's what they don't get.
Well, look, if you go to Vegas and you go to an all-you-can-eat buffet and you get so full you're sick to your stomach, as soon as you're hungry again, do you want to go back to that buffet? No way.
No.
I had enough.
You are disgusting. Yep.
So when you go to a buffet where the food is nice and you control your eating and you eat just enough and the price is right, guess what?
You're going back.
You're like, hey, let's go hit that place up again. But what they're doing is they're giving too much away in one show. There's nothing for the people to want to come back. It's no coincidentiality, whatever you say it,
Did you just
Is
make
that
that word up?
years
Hold on.
ago?
Did you just make that
Yeah,
word
it's
up?
no coincidence. It's no coincidence that years ago, the great wrestlers would pride themselves on doing as little as possible and getting as much out of it as they possibly could. And just enough so the people were still hungry.
Yeah.
That was the art. And all the boys knew they were going to be there in a year. It's no secret. Vince McMahon, when he first started running WrestleMania, he would sit down and go, okay, who do we want to be champion in a year? All right, let's work backwards and figure out how we're going to do this so we can take a year. Hogan Andre, classic example. We can take a year to build this up so it'll be the biggest mega thing ever. Then you have the blow off match. Here's the problem is it's not pro wrestling is not complicated, but people are complicated, and people get involved in pro wrestling and they complicate the simplest thing in the world. People have been wrestling for 2,000 plus years, okay? And they've had audience going all the way back to the Roman days. And it's not complicated, but make it complicated. It's a simple formula.
It's so true.
But I'll never have a job I'll never have a job with them because I won't kiss somebody's ass. If somebody tells me, what do you think of this? And it sucks. Haggis can tell you. Damian Wayne can tell you. Chance Prophet can tell you. Promoter put an angle together on a really big show. Jimmy Valiant was in the locker room. The boogeyman was there, and I yelled at the promoter across the room, "Your effing angle in the main event sucks. I'm picking somebody to go over. There isn't going to be a three-way count out. Deal with it." And everybody's like, "What?" They came over, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The main event's not ending the way you want it to. There's right here, and I'm the guest referee. We're going to do it my way."
But you know,
because it did make sense, but it was an idiotic finish because he didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings by putting somebody over.
and
Look, if you're a professional,
why the
heel
is failing.
Heel loved to put the baby face over in the middle. Loved it. Nothing greater than that pop because those people hated me so bad that when he went over out of nowhere, they went crazy. So I'm like, hurt somebody's feelings. We're all professionals here. You got Haggis, you got Damian Wayne, you got Chance Prophet. Yeah, nobody's feeling gets hurt. Okay, we're doing something different.
But Ric Flair did okay, didn't he?
Yes.
Huh?
And you know the thing, and Haggis was a triple crown winner in the NWA. Wayne was national champion. You know, it's 3 times. So it's not. It's
Q
Network. ECAM Network.
Yeah, back up a little bit. We love you though.
ECAM Network.
Hey.
I was saying ECAM Network. ECAM Network.
but
And if you guys enjoyed the show tonight, do us a favor, hit subscribe so we can be on the air and bring you these insane trips down memory lane.
Yeah, I'm gonna get Q hot here one of these shows. I'm gonna get him all fired up. Hey Q, really quick though, man. You know, can you imagine though? Because can you imagine Dusty's feelings must have been really hurt when those checks were coming in with those matches with Flair. Or Harley Race must have been devastated beyond belief. He probably retired because he had to lose to Ric Flair. You know, Sting had to lose to Ric Flair. Boys, oh boys.
Broke his heart. Broke his heart. Are you kidding me? I mean, he only made $25,000 for putting him over. That's real heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Your mind.
You know what, man?
When I got in the business, you know what they told me when I got in the business? If you're not willing to lose at least half the time and be just as happy, you're in the wrong business.
Get the hell out. Because this business is not made for the weak. You know what? These boys travel 350 days a year nonstop, 14, 15, 20 years. We don't need people that if you're going to suck because you got to lay down and do the JOB, man, you're in the wrong profession, brother. Because not everyone can be a winner. You know, Zach Ryder is a prime example. Heath Slater is another one of guys who don't win hardly ever, but they're having the time of their lives. And you know, you never hear them really bitch complain unless maybe they're a little bit upset and they finally just need to let it out. But for the most part, you never hear them bitch complain, ever.
Hey, you heard my story. Tommy Dreamer didn't win a match for 2 years. When they found they were going to put him over on Raven because Raven was leading W, Dreamer threw a fit. No, it'll ruin me. It'll ruin me. He was the most over baby face in the promotion, and he never won a match.
People don't get it, do they? They don't get it. They do
No,
not get it.
no,
So,
they don't. They don't. They was in California, and the guys that almost were in Arizona, but most of the guys are in and they have no idea how to get that 3,000 miles California to get it. And it's free to get it. You just got to get it.
yeah. Well, and you've heard the old saying about you know, when the young rookies would get in the car and you get a guy like old Zeb Coulter. His name is skipping me, and I don't know why. So please help me. Dutch mentality. And Dutch would start talking, and Dutch would say, you know, okay, let's go over this. And that rookie would say, oh my God, we just discussed this. And he would say, I know, and we're going to keep discussing it until it rings a bell, until you get it. So,
Well, I always said the reason Joey Mercury came out so good is because Jimmy, I put him in New York in the back of a car and drove around with him for 2 years. We all lived less than a half an hour apart, and it was the rolling classroom, just like the old school way.
the best way, you mean? The best way.
I'll tell you a guy we had on the show back in October, Matt Griffin, wrestled as JC North. I had closed my school, and he was a Marine. He wanted to get what to do. $2,000. You drive me to every single show that we go to in the next year. I'll pay for the gas. All you gotta do is buy your food. I'll pay for the gas. You pick me up and drive me for a year, and I'll call the promoters and I'll get to the show 2 hours early, and I'll get in a stay, pick me up in the snowstorm, and then bring a new car. I said, what'd you do? Get a new car? He goes, well, I got to drive the champ around for a year to learn the business. I don't want him comfortable. And I said, kid, you're going to make it. It's a true story. I said, kid, you're going to make it. He had a career for wrestled for side when Bill Behrens was running it. I mean, just was on TV all the time in the South, had a fantastic career until he decided to pursue business. And he's got a great business career because he's got the work ethic. Because we did 105 shows that year. So he goes around to 105 different shows.
People don't realize
There
it.
you go.
They don't realize it. Let's talk all things brainstorm. Let's talk things sponsors here on Triple T Radio as we slow down and bring this show to a close. We certainly can't do that without our sponsors. Of course, the eCam Network, which is the official sponsor for all things Triple T Radio production, hands down. Ain't no doubt about it, AQ.
Oh, if they can make us look good, they must be fantastic. That's all I can say. It's unbelievable. Love the eCam Network. And, you know, Brainstorm, I've been taking it since October, and my wife noticed a couple of things. November, I'm sorry. That I mood swings, as old wrestlers get sometimes, because it's hard to get out of bed. You got your career behind you, and you know, by the time you figure out how to be a great wrestler, it's too old to do it. So sometimes it gets depressing. And I also noticed I had a sleep disorder my whole life. I've taken every kind of medication in the world for it. But since the sleep score last night was 86, the night before was 88 on my Fitbit. And if anybody knows sleep scores, that's extremely high. I had 2.5 hours of REM, 2.5 hours of deep sleep. I mean, it's amazing. Don't wake up during the middle of the night 5 times. I don't have to get up and roll over 6 times and wake my wife up. It's is you get a fantastic sleep pattern out of it. It's unbelievable. I've never felt so rested in my life. And on top of that, it keeps my brain sharp, as you can tell, unless I'm trying to invent a word.
This is true.
When I try to invent a word, it's a little tough.
What was that word? What was that? What was that word again? Q. Don't
It
tell me.
was coincidentalify.
Yeah, and of course
Something like that.
this show is brought to you by KitchenAid, Hertz, Redline Goods, Camelback. We're really
TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor.
the best web hosting there is. Bluehost.
Bluehost. I'm telling you, if you have internet service and you're doing anything and you don't have Bluehost, you're nuts. If you don't have NordVPN, have virtual private network. You know what that does? Nobody steals your information on your credit cards. I've had that done before. I had somebody, my PayPal account is attached to our bank account, and somebody in Jamaica came in and put our PayPal card through our bank account and sent themselves $500 sleep all night. And that's because I didn't, a true story, we got it back from the bank, but that's because I didn't have a virtual private network and couldn't hide my stuff. So make sure you get NordVPN. It's extremely inexpensive and it protects your valuable information.
Absolutely. It's the number one thing in the world, guys, and you want to remember that. Q, as always, we have so much fun on this show, and you said it yourself earlier in a text message to me, and I'll share it with the fans. This is looking like a 6-parter, 7-parter. We're getting there. We got profiles to cover. Of course, we covered Rocky Johnson, and I feel so bad saying this, but that was the name that I actually forgot the day that you and I were trying to figure it out. Actually, you probably knew. You're probably just being an ass to me. But Rocky Johnson was the profile show we did, so we're going to have more of them coming up. We've got all sorts of great stuff. Last week was a bit...
You know what I'd like?
What?
You know what I'd like to do is, as some people know, King Kong Bundy was a personal friend to me, my wife, my cousins, my nephews. With King Kong Bundy, and you made me table. I said, "Well, you're a fan. You don't belong to set with the Bundy." But King Kong Bundy put me on a lot of shows all over the country. He always put me against him. Had some fantastic matches. He passed last year. I'm still friends with his sister Katie and both his brothers. And I'd like to do a King Kong Bundy special.
I would love that.
Very personal. And of course, Jimmy Superfly Snuka. We got so many to do on people that I knew that have passed. I mean,
yeah, most certainly.
It's literally a year's worth of show. The great enemy to from the list goes we can do, and I'd like to maybe once a month do a tribute show. Just spend the entire show doing a tribute to these wrestlers that really, due to a lot of the suffering that we go through and a lot of the mental anguish and being away and the physical pain and the emotions, they sometimes don't make it out the other side. And I think that it would be a nice thing if we planned on maybe every month doing a memorial show to one of the greats. I like to do get rid of the ones that I knew personally first, and that'll be about 3 years from now, and then we can move forward on others.
Well, the thing is, you're right. I would love to do that. And of course, at the beginning of the night, some people probably noticed a opener that had a gentleman on there who was actually Malcolm Wallace's grandfather who passed away. And I had put that up for Melko because, his grampy to him was Superman to a child. So I did that for Melko. Yeah. That was from me and Q to you, Melko. That's just love and respect to you because I know you're going through a really hard time right now. And I just want to let you know, man, we're thinking of you. We love you. And, I promise you're never going to get over it, but it will get a little easier as time goes on. So,
Yeah, and Malco's got my number. If he wants to hit me up, I'm always here for him. And had a lot of great times when you and him were doing the show together years ago. Every time I go through my memories of 5 years ago, rope to rope,
oh,
7
I
years ago,
know.
rope to rope, 6 years ago, rope to rope. I mean, I was like the third wheel, the little kid you couldn't get rid of. And if you got in a pinch, needed to be the guy. So,
Well, I like to
yeah, a lot of
think
good memories.
I gave you somewhat of the itch to want to do this whole podcast thing because
You did. You did. You
I
did. And here's the thing is, I don't know if you know it, but let's see. We just had our 6 month anniversary
oh wow.
tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Wow.
We started October 8th on the air. So tomorrow is our 6 month anniversary. And I did the podcast once and I uh
6 months.
so congratulations, buddy.
Yeah, congratulations to us here.
Yeah, man. Yay.
You're the man.
All right, buddy.
Without you, this
good.
show is impossible, my man. Thank you.
Well,
Love you.
it is impossible without you too. So.
I look forward to coming back here next week and every week to
Yes, sir.
business.
Let's do it.
All right.
And always, peace out. Deuces.